Hi. Okay, so I have another message for today. So this message is titled Read the Writing on the Wall. So, back in Babylonian times, there was a king. He was the son of Nebuchadnezzar. His name was Belshazzar. And he had a feast with 1,000 guests. And he was having a lavish, wild party with all these guests. They're having a great time. They decided to take some goblets that they had stolen from the temple from the raiding of Jerusalem. Uh, these were goblets that had been commissioned by King Solomon, and they took these goblets and they were drinking out of them. They were getting drunk. They were having a wild time. Suddenly, during the middle of the party, a disembodied hand shows up out of nowhere and it starts writing on the wall in a mysterious writing that they've never seen before. And all the people, all the guests stop and look at it in horror. So they call Daniel the prophet, right? And they call him, he's from Jerusalem. He was raised in captivity there in Babylon. And they ask him to read the writing on the wall. This is where you get the phrase, read the writing on the wall, right? The idiom. So he reads the writing, and they had offered him gold to tell them what it said exactly. And he said, "You don't need to give me any gold or treasure, because after this, things are going to change." And he told them that you have been weighed, my king. According to the writing on the wall, it says that you have been weighed and found lacking, and that you will be judged. So that night, the king ignored what Daniel had said, and Daniel left the party, and they continued to feast and have revelry and wild times. And the king died that night. They were attacked by outsiders, and the palace was invaded, and the king died. And then there's another story that I want to tell you from the Bible. It's the story of Bathsheba. So most people, when you think of Bathsheba, you think of the woman that was bathing on the rooftop, right? But this is a different story of Bathsheba. So Bathsheba was married to King David for a long time, but she kind of had a bad reputation. She was kind of neglected and mistreated by the court. Um, there was another member of the royal court named Adonijah that had decided that when the king died that he would just take everything and that it belonged to him and he was the rightful new king, the new heir to the throne. Although Bathsheba did have a son, King David was dying, and on his deathbed she came to him and she said, "Is this the future that you have planned for our son?" And she was talking about her son and how um, after King David would die, Adonijah would probably throw his son in jail and her in jail, take all of their things, and probably they would end up dead somewhere, disappeared and pushed to the side. So King David, in his last final decisions, decided to crown the son of Bathsheba to become the heir to the throne, right, as the king of Israel. Adonijah was throwing a lavish party with all of his friends. They were having a wild revelry and lots of partying and feasting and drinking. And when they heard the news that a new king had been crowned of Israel and it wasn't Adonijah, and all of the guests looked at each other and quietly excused themselves and said they had to go somewhere else. Adonijah could have made a different decision, but he decided to repent and ask for forgiveness with the new king. And because he did, the king was a fair judge. Adonijah atoned, and the new king accepted his apology. That new king became one of the wisest judges to be ever known, and his name was Solomon. That was King Solomon, one of the most famous men, and considered to be the wisest men in history, right? And at least in the stories of Israel. So we have two men that had two very different choices that they could have made. Belshazzar had decided to stay in his ego and his arrogance and decided to keep partying, and as a result, something bad happened to him, right? A negative outcome. He didn't bother to heed the writing on the wall. And on the other hand, we had Adonijah, who did repent and decided to talk to the new king of Israel and ask for forgiveness. And as a result, everything turned out well for everyone in that instance. There's a story in the history of Germany. It's like a fairy tale story, right? So there were these people that lived in Hamlin, right? And they had lots of wealth, and they were plagued, though, by rats, and they had all sorts of issues. A man comes to town. He's called the Pied Piper. He has a magic flute, and he plays this pretty flute, and he leads all of their problems out of town. He leads the rats out of town. And they had agreed that they would pay him, right? If he did these things for them. And he worked very hard. He came back to town and he said, "Okay, it's time for you guys to pay me for everything that I've done for you. I've done quite a lot." And the people were kind of in their arrogance, and they didn't want to pay him. They didn't want to let go of their gold and everything that they had, right? And so they didn't bother to pay the piper. And he asked them several times, and they wouldn't relent. They refused to pay him anything at all after all that he had done and all of his services and everything that he was kind of due at that point and deserved to have. So he went out into the square and he picked up his magic flute and he played a very pretty tune. And pretty soon all the children of the town came out into the square, and they followed him over the hills as he played and up into the mountains and far, far away. The point with this message is that when we have the choice, if we've realized that we might have done something to somebody where we haven't given them what they deserve or what they're due, or if we've taken something from them unfairly and it's caused them a lot of problems and ruined their life or damaged things for them, we have the choice of reading the writing on the wall and adjusting our behavior like Adonijah did, or dealing in arrogance like Belshazzar did, or the people of Hamelin, right? When we have the chance to pay the piper, maybe we should do that. Anyways, this is the message for today. Have a great day. God bless.